What's going on, guys? Magdown here with a quick late league, high investment, farming strategy, guide, diary, whatever. I did 32 high investment Delirious maps, and we're going to go over how I set all of that up, my experience of running all 32 of them, and then we'll go over what I was able to pull out of the maps. So if all that interests you, hit that like and subscribe button and stick around. Alright, I'm going to throw some map footage from one of the streams where we were doing these maps in the background here while I go over how I have everything set up. I did 32 Crimson Temple maps with 60% Delirious. One reward was currency or card on every map, and then the other two rewards were random, whatever I had on hand or whatever was cheapest. We rolled all the maps to have Beyond and 20% pack size or better if we could help it. One or two maps might have been less than that, but for the most part, they were all up there. Scarabs I used were Polished Harbinger because I felt like the price difference wasn't worth it, given how juicy the rest of the setup is. And then we used Gilded Breach, Gilded Divination, and Rusted Elder. Remember, the rusted ones still give us the influence. We don't really benefit from paying more for the more expensive scarabs in this case. For Sextants, we had Beyond, Delirium Bars Fill Faster, Unique Monsters Drop Corrupted Items, and Harbinger. And then on the map device, I threw an Alva mission on there because I've stocked up tons of them over the course of the league since I tend to not pay attention very much to my master missions at all. And then I threw Domination on there because I like it. I'm not going to go over the entire Atlas tree. I've done that in a lot of the videos throughout the course of the league, so if you want to know point for point, you can go back to a previous video and find that. I think there's some variability here, but generally speaking, I took all the Beyond nodes, all Quantum Rarity nodes, all the map modifier effect nodes at the top, and then I took the Alva nodes for pack size and chance for all mobs and Incursion to be magic or better. So let's jump back into the hideout and we will go over how I felt about the process and the results. Now that I'm thinking about it, let's go over the results first. I'll throw up a screenshot of the Profits tab. And I'll tell you what's in there, and then we'll talk about the profit, and then I'll tell you about what I included when I did. So here we've got 369C, nice. 42 grand Eldritch currency, so that's about an X. 105 stacked decks, a little bit more than an X. 13 ancient orbs, about an X. There's some annulments there, but we're not going to include those. There are 77 sextants or so in there, which you could sell and get maybe an X, but I'm not going to include it. And then 186 divines, so that's about 11 X, give or take. And then 7 raw X. So that's 24 X. And then the cards you see there, one of those is an Apothecary, and then 2 of them are 7 years bad luck. And the other ones are, I think there's a Hoarder in there and some other like less than 100 C cards, which I'm not going to include in the profits because it's just random. But the Apothecaries in the 7 years were what we were after, so I'm going to include those because that's why we bought the Gilded Div. And so all of that put together, if I did the math right, which who knows, we'll see, it's like 64, 65x. And so I think I put in about 15 to 20, let's call it 20x. So you got 44, 45x in profit. So that I do about 4 maps an hour when I'm streaming. I tend to get through about 2 sets of 4 in the roughly 2 hours I stream. I take a lot of breaks. And so it's pretty slow. You could do it a lot faster if you want to. I could do it a lot faster if I just did it off stream and just put my head down and did it. But at that speed, that's 1.3x of profit per map. And so 5.3 to 5.5 per hour. I don't know. I hesitate to do these kinds of calculations because I don't really care about them that much. To put it in more direct terms, I had like 40 something X when I started the project, and when I was done and I sold all the stuff and also the shit that I'm not including and whatever, I had like 120, 130x, and so I bought this crazy ass bow. And I'm pretty happy with it. And in fact, the addition of this to the build sort of re-energized me, and so I've even been rolling up some more stuff, just kind of throwing currency into it, buying orbs when I can, and using the random ones just to juice up these regular maps, and then these are some Conqueror ones, obviously, so I'm gonna see what happens if we do like 100% Delirious Conqueror maps all juiced up, see what kind of profit we can get out of that. But it for me, it was very profitable. But even if you don't include the Apothecary, it's still like a third of an X in each map, and so that's not very good if you're only doing 4 an hour. But again, if you were doing it, you know, if you were doing like 8 of them an hour, that'd be, you know, 2 or 3x an hour in profit, which again is not insane, but part of what you're doing when you're juicing like this is you're waiting for those big drops. And so and then in terms of what I included and what I did not, first of all, just a rough estimate, there was at least 5 to 7x, maybe as much as 10 to 15 in just the stuff that I'm not including because it just wasn't what I was after, and I just kind of wanted to see how much raw currencies and cards and stuff I could get. But I mean, I didn't include the invitation that dropped. You could sell some of the maps that dropped. If you set your tree up different, you could sell all the Conqueror maps and whatever that you get off the bosses. I didn't include the annulment orbs. I didn't include lots of other shard type currencies, and the list goes on. There was a lot of stuff that was just too tedious. I just kind of took out the stuff that made sense to me to keep track of, and then just threw the bulk of it into the main stash. And yes, it eventually kind of gets sold, but this gave me the information that I wanted, which was, is it worth it for me as a solo player to invest this much in maps? Can I pull out profit from doing so this late in the league? And will it help me acquire those last large and expensive upgrades for my build? And the answer is yes. It absolutely did that. It was super effective. And so I'm happy with the project as a whole. Now let's talk about the downside, which is the difficulty of the content and the amount of loot that you have to pick up. So with my character being essentially made out of paper, the looting is the most difficult part. So a lot of these maps would have at least 2 full inventories of loot, but sometimes as much as 3. And it was all stuff that didn't make sense to leave on the floor. 6-link items, raw currency, stuff like that. I wasn't picking up, you know, absolute garbage. This was all reasonable stuff to be picking up. And so going in and out of the map gets rid of my headhunter buffs. So that creates some tedium that perhaps you can avoid if you have a build that doesn't suffer from that problem, that isn't relying as much on the headhunter as I am for clear. And so there was a lot of, the map is completely clear. There's 20 monsters left. I don't know exactly where they are, but as soon as I go find a giant pile of loot and start clicking on it, 2 or 3 of them find me and beat me up. And then I have to use several portals while I'm running through trying to pick up 6 links. That part was kind of painful. I had a fairly rough stream the last day I was doing this where I bricked the map, and then we had one where I don't know what happened. If something errored out and the instance was just deleted, and there was like half the map. So that's another thing to keep in mind. I really probably should say I did 30 maps. I opened 32 maps. I didn't really get to complete 32 maps. And then sometimes I forget to put the Alva mission on there. Sometimes I would come out with the first inventory of loot and then just forget to go back in and just open the next map. You could make a lot more than what I made, even at this stage in the league, if you're better at the game, or if you have a more well-rounded build, or if you have better attention to detail, / you care more at this stage about, you know, dotting all the I's and crossing the T's. You could maybe even make like 50% or better, you know, more than I did just on those metrics alone. So very profitable. And yeah, so the looting is pretty painful. Another problem is the performance. We were going into slideshow mode pretty frequently, and I don't enjoy that very much. Not for the duration that it was happening. I like it to be fairly smooth gameplay 90% of the time, and then you get those occasional big moments where it slows down and the frames go down a little bit, but then you get a big pop and some loot drops out. That I'm pretty cool with, and that seems to be about the 20%, 40% delirium range. Maybe just double beyond, not going all out from all the possible sources. In this case, we've got all kinds of beyond stuff going on. I'm juicing way harder, and so there's that 10% of the time where it's a little choppy, but it's cool, becomes 50 to 70% of the experience, and for me, that's too much. So I'm going to do another small project like I showed earlier with the Conqueror maps, but then I think if I have time here, I also want to do another round of just 20% delirium, maybe 30 to 50 maps, and just see how profitable is that at this stage in the league. Because I talked to a lot of people who they're at that final stage, but their last upgrade is 100x or 200x or something. And you also have a lot of people just talking about the league in post-mortem. A lot of people are already practicing for league starts next week. And I think that's kind of a shame. I really enjoy this part of the league. I make a lot of my currency at this stage in the league. If you know what to sell, you can make all the currency that you need. And I'm still having fun. I'm still buying cool items and enjoying the build that I'm playing. And there's still several farming strategies that I haven't gotten to try yet that I think would be fun. If I get bored enough towards the last week or two, I never did make a bossing character. Maybe we'll do that. Just because the player count is going down and it becomes harder to have the trade, you know, I don't want to say have it function, but have it be as convenient as it can be in the current system. Having it drop off like that, that doesn't have to end the experience. There's still basically 4 weeks left. So I would say you have at least 2 full weeks where it makes sense to be upgrading characters and farming and doing stuff like that. So I think a lot of folks jumped the gun a little bit with calling the league over. For me, I think I'll still play, like I said, at least for another week or two, and chase some final upgrades, try a few more strats, things like that. So I will be back very shortly with another farming video. I hope that you found something useful, interesting, etc. And yeah, we will see you then. I appreciate it.